On behalf of the Cookeville Putnam County Chamber, I'd like to welcome you to our annual State of the State Luncheon. I'm Jeff Root, and it's my honor to serve as the 2025 Chairman of the Chamber Board. We are so glad to see such a great turnout from our business and community leaders here today. Thank you for taking the time to hear some great updates directly from our elected officials. This event is special to all of us. It's an opportunity to hear directly from our state legislators who reflect on the progress made across our beautiful state and look at the policies and priorities shaping our state's future. Before we begin, I'd like to invite my dear friend Steve Tibu, who is the lead pastor at my second favorite church, the River Community Church, to come forward and lead us in the invocation.
Thank you, Jeff. And Ford is my second favorite American car company. And we'll open with a word of prayer. God, we thank you for laughter. We thank you for joy. We thank you for the beautiful gift you've given us in the Upper Cumberland of the trees, people, a great environment, great individuals everywhere, great leadership. Lord, we do not take it for granted that we have godly men and women in so many areas of leadership, and we say thank you. We want to begin by praying blessings upon all of our state leaders, those that are sharing with us today. God, we pray blessings upon their family, because I know there's a lot of stress that comes with that, not just for them, but their families. And Lord, we pray for today that as we listen, we learn, that you will give us any insight we need and show us, God, how we can all be a part of making this place an even greater place for our kids and our grandkids in the future. We pray that all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Steve. Of course, events like this wouldn't be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. Today's luncheon is proudly sponsored by Enbridge, and we are grateful for their continued investment in our chamber, the Highlands Economic Partnership, Leadership Putnam, and really throughout our entire community. Please join me in welcoming Art Haskins, who's here to share a few words on behalf of Enbridge.
Thank you for allowing us to sponsor this type of event. We've been working on our Ridgeline project since it was announced by TVA in June of 21. We've done research on biological, all kinds of different things, and bat surveys and everything else. But we've also had the great pleasure of, on behalf of the 185 employees that work in the state of Tennessee with myself, Elizabeth and James as well. We've had the chance to participate in events like this and other communities across the entire footprint. We're actually operating in 48 counties, even though right here we have our pipeline that's been serving this area for more than 75 years, and expansion of that pipeline is this project for TVA. We've reached that point. So this couple weeks ago, we received our notice to proceed from our federal regulators. We've got all of our permits in hand, and over in Trousdale County, we've actually started construction. We'll be coming through this area as soon as we can survey and clear trees and start working on the process. So thank you all for allowing us to participate, and thank you for those that have supported our project since the beginning.
Thank you so much. Okay. So now that we got that fun little competitiveness out of Jeff and Steve, y'all are hilarious. I just hope that at the end of the day, we're your first favorite Chamber of Commerce. That's most important. So thank you, Steve, Jeff, and Art, for those encouraging words. We appreciate you very much. Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy New, and I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to see such a huge turnout for our 2025 State of the State. This always seems to be one of our most popular, and I think it's pretty obvious on why it is, because we like to know what's going on at our state capitol, but also we like to hear straight from the mouths of our legislators rather than maybe reading some things on social media or in the news, right? And I'm sure Senator Bailey and Representative Williams and Speaker Sexton would agree that they like to share that as well. So thank you. Also, thank you again to Art and your Enbridge team for all that you do. Like Jeff said, all that you do to support this organization, but really across the entire region, you support us, so we appreciate you. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our media partners that are with us today and sponsoring this, Highlands Insider, and owners Herbert and Clarissa Williams are with us today. They not only run Highlands Insider, but they also have Cookeville Now and Shinecast Studio, all part of the Reeves Williams Publishing Company. Most recently, they launched Highlands Insider, that is a print and digital outlet dedicated to covering local news across the Highlands region. We appreciate you all reporting this, and I hope everyone will go visit their site. And also, if you see someone that wasn't here today and missed it, they can go and review this after on the website. So thank you. You know, it's always an honor to have our state legislators with us and hear again from them rather than what we see sometimes in the news and on social media about the initiatives and the policies that they are working on to strengthen not only our region, but really the rest of the state. And so I also want to point out a few things before we begin hearing from them. I'd like to draw your attention to the screen. You'll see a slide that includes a QR code that is linked directly to our 2025 legislative agenda. I want you all to look at that and kind of see what was presented this past year so that you can also see, get an idea of why we put together a legislative agenda, what items are on there. And then also, you may be wondering how we determine what goes on these legislative agendas. Each year we host more than a dozen roundtables with different industry sectors across the Highlands region. And as you all know, the Highlands region is not just Putnam County, it's White, Jackson, and Overton counties as well. But we host roundtables in different industry sectors, as well as bringing all of our stakeholders together at both the local government level and nonprofits, educators, so many different levels to hear from them on what barriers they have that are affecting them from being as successful as possible. And so those discussions happen, and then we put together this agenda, and we would love today to open that up to hear from you all. So this next QR code, we love QR codes, don't we, Carlin? We'd like to hear from you. So if you would scan this, if you have some ideas, obviously we don't want you to worry about putting it on there right now, but over the next week to 2 weeks, we will be, we've pretty much got it for the most part finalized on the local government level, but we'd love to hear from some of our business owners on some things that they may want to include on this. Now, just over shoulder here, I see Stacy Blackman, who was very, very instrumental in helping us build that this past year on the area of small business and pharmacies in some areas. So that came out of a discussion like this and them wanting to put some information into it. So please do scan that, submit some information, and from there we'll put together the agenda and look to share it with you all. So now let's turn the attention to our special guests, because that's why we're here today. Each of our speakers will share key priorities on things that they're working on for this upcoming session, and then we'll move into a Q&A portion to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that you all submitted as members and as stakeholders. Our first speaker is Senator Paul Bailey. I may ask Senator Bailey to start walking up here while I read your bio. But Senator Bailey was elected to serve the Senate District 15 in 2014. Representing Cumberland, Jackson, Putnam, Smith, Van Buren, and White counties. He currently serves as chair of the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee and is also a member of the Senate Fiscal Review and the Transportation and Safety Committees. Over the past 10 years, thousands of jobs have been created in District 15 thanks to the collaborative efforts of our state delegation, including Senator Bailey, and our local communities, all working to promote business growth and better infrastructure for our region. Senator Bailey and his wife Amy live in White County, where they raise their 3 children. So please join me in welcoming Senator Paul Bailey. Thank you so much.
Well, what a wonderful crowd here at lunchtime. So thank you for being with us. I was kind of thinking this is maybe like being at The Baptist church, the front row is kind of empty and the back rows are filled. So any of you that want to move forward, certainly feel free. That's what the pastor usually says to me every Sunday morning while I'm sitting on that back row and looking for the time to exit. And but regardless, it's always wonderful to be with you guys and to be able to do a State of the State update, especially with my good friends Cameron Sexton and Ryan Williams. What a great team that they are to have in Nashville working on behalf of the Upper Cumberland. So let's give the two of them a round. I know you will multiple times this morning, but it is certainly great to have the Speaker of the House from the Upper Cumberland and also the Chairman of the Finance Ways and Means Subcommittee to be part of the Upper Cumberland. And then fortunately, I get to chair the Commerce and Labor Committee, which is a very diverse committee ranging from TennCare, economic community development, to labor and workforce development, commerce and insurance. So it's a very diverse committee, and then as well as serving on the Transportation and Safety Committee. I'm just going to touch on a couple of things that we probably talked about at last year's State of the State. Oh, and one other person that's here, Representative Ron Travis is here. He's from down in Ray County. He's actually going to be retiring from the legislature this year, but he's running for Ray County mayor. So Representative Travis, it's good to have you in Putnam County and Cookeville today. So thank you for being here. So I'm going to touch on just a few things that we've done over the past few years that I think that's been definitely very positive, especially here for the Cookeville, Putnam County area. So last year, you probably remember me talking about corporate practice of medicine, and that was a legislation that Representative Williams and I carried, and it's really relative to Cumberland or Cookeville Regional Medical Center for some issues that they had with their radiologists, pathologists, emergency room doctors. And so we were able to basically allow some autonomy to take place in passing this legislation to help our rural hospitals be able to hire those various professionals, medical professionals within their hospitals without actually having to have a corporation or a company employ them. And so that was an issue that Cookeville Regional experienced a couple of years ago. And they were very instrumental in coming to Nashville and helping Representative Williams and I, as well as Speaker Sexton, move that legislation forward. It's been a long battle that took 5 years to actually pass that legislation and get it moving forward. But I can tell you, it's been a very big help to not only Cookeville Regional, but all of rural health care across the state of Tennessee. Some other legislation that I had the privilege of carrying that has been a huge benefit for all Tennesseans across the state, and that was passing the block grant that allows us to receive our Medicaid dollars from the federal government in the form of a block grant for TennCare. We're the only state in the nation that actually receives our Medicaid dollars from the federal government in the form of a block grant. We told the federal government about 5 years ago that if you allow us to go to a block grant, that we can show that we can cover additional populations because of the shared savings that we'll be able to send back to Washington. I know some of you have heard me speak and talk about this in the past. Can anyone tell me how much money that we are receiving back from the federal government in the past 3 years each year, besides Ryan or Speaker Sexton? Can anyone each year? Yes, sir. $330 million we have been receiving in shared savings from the federal government for the past 3 years. We've nearly received $1 billion in the past 3 years. And one of the things that we told the federal government that if you would allow us to go to a block grant system within our TennCare program, that we would cover additional populations. And in doing so, we've provided 12 months of postpartum care for pregnant mothers and their babies. We've also extended dental health care to adults. Those of you that are in this room know that dental health care is very important, that if you basically head off any kind of dental health issues, that's also something that will help from having other health issues later on in life. And then the other thing that we did this year in our budget is we are providing over $78 million to go towards rural hospitals, to help those rural hospitals across our state, as well as we're providing over $90 million of that shared savings to go forward and help adult senior care. So we did what we told the federal government that we would do, that if you would allow us to run a program and run it efficiently, that we would be able to expand and help other populations within Tennessee, and that's exactly what we've done. So that's certainly something that I'm proud of, that I was able to have the support of Speaker Sexton and Representative Williams in moving that forward. And that's something that you should be proud of, that Tennessee is a leader in the nation, especially with their Medicaid program. No other state has ever gotten a block grant for the Medicaid dollars, and therefore I don't know that even the Trump administration would give another waiver in the form that we have currently received. You've also heard in the news, on the national news, about a lot of states having issues within their Medicaid program because they accepted the Medicaid expansion program several years ago. Because of us being under the block grant, we're not subject to a lot of those problems that those states are having. So Tennessee, again, was leading the way in being fiscally responsible, but also being able to cover additional populations in that. And then just finally, I'll say this. One thing that I'm always happy to do within the legislature is carry legislation for our first responders and our law enforcement. And so that's something that with Sheriff Ferris and District Attorney Dunaway and others, as well as our firefighters, have come to me over the past several years. We've expanded basically workers' comp coverage for our firefighters that were not receiving coverage for like colon cancer, prostate cancer, and so forth and so on because of their job duties that they have as those firefighters. And so that's something that I'm proud to be able to say that we were able to pass and do for some of our first responders. We've also passed legislation to also help protect our law enforcement officers whenever they're at a scene and they're working an active scene, to be able to keep a buffer zone from the law enforcement taking place, excuse me, and those citizens that sometimes want to disrupt what's actually taking place within that active scene. I think you've seen that even in Memphis in the last few weeks, where there's a lot of activity taking place there with law enforcement, and that buffer zone has definitely helped them be able to do the job that they need to do. So with that, thank you very much. It's certainly an honor to be with you this morning, and I look forward to hearing comments from my fellow colleagues.
Thank you, Senator Bailey. So next, we will welcome Representative Ryan Williams. Representative Williams was first elected to the Tennessee General Assembly in 2010 and represents House District 42, which includes parts of Putnam County. He currently serves, well, I say most of Putnam County, right? Cameron might say the best part if you're from Monterey. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. For all my football friends, I live in football now. I need to stop, right? James has given me the mean mug now. He currently serves as the chair of Finance, Ways and Means Appropriations Subcommittee and is also a member of the full committees on pensions, finance, and health. In addition, Representative Williams serves on the Tennessee Advisory Council on Intergovernmental Relations, also known as TASER, which brings together members of the House, Senate, and local governments to review and improve how government works at every level. Professionally, Representative Williams is the Director of Business Development at J&S Construction, where he helps clients with land acquisition, design, and construction services. He and his wife, Abby, have been married for 28 years? 29 years, and have 2 adult children. Gosh, can't believe they're adults now, but please welcome Representative Ryan Williams. That's all I'm kidding.
Thank you, Amy. And yeah, it's still hard to hear that my children are adults, but that's part of it. So anyways, thank you all for the opportunity, Enbridge, for sponsoring today's event, Amy and your team for stewarding it together. And I too want to recognize Ron Travis, RT is what we call him. He and I served together in the House, and he thinks that it's better to go home for some reason, but he is. So we're excited for him and what the Lord has for him in his future. I do love this event, mainly because being a former city councilman before I was state representative, I kind of get to see people that I served with alongside here in the city council when I was here. Two of my favorite people in the world, though, are always here, and I have to recognize them. Gene and Bobby Davis are back. Everybody wave at them. Former mayor and vice mayor of Cookeville. We love you guys. Bobby was telling me earlier in 1967 when he was mayor of this fine city of Cookeville that the population was about 10,000 people. And man, has it changed a lot in Bobby's mind, because I know it's changed a lot since I've been here 25 years. But it's really exciting to have them, and if you want to find them, usually sometime between 6 and 7:30, they're walking the streets of Cookeville picking up trash. So you can find them there close to their home. So very thankful for them. Let me first say also, thank you. Really, it is Abby and I, when we got started serving in elected role, it's a very thankless job, but it is a lot like a calling. You are called to this really because you don't do it for the pay, and you don't do it because you like to get fussed at. But we're very passionate about this community and its people, and that means you. And so we recognize you could pick somebody else to serve you, and I'm honored that you've selected me to represent you and your families for this long. It's been an honor to do that. It's not always been fun, as Speaker and Senator Bailey can attest, but it's always rewarding to be able to do that. Of course, this being a State of the State address, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you how I think the state's doing. In the 15 years that I've been in the Tennessee General Assembly, the state is really strong. It really is. We're in a really good place. There are no other states really comparably to Tennessee, which is why in the last 50 years we've seen population grow by 700,000. In the last 10 years alone, we've seen 600,000 new Tennesseans call Tennessee home. And that's because the formula that we operate by, regardless of partisan politics, it works. And Tennessee is thriving mainly because of the good stewardship of the resources that you and your families have entrusted to us. And for that, we're very grateful. Some of the things I'll share with you that the Speaker was stated earlier. The Speaker of the House selects the committees that you're on. So I'm honored to serve on the committees which Amy referenced earlier. But because of my service, there are two subject matters really that I have to dive in that are very important. Finance is one of those as it relates to the state budget. The other is health. And so I thought I'd share with you just a couple of things that I think is really important. 5 years ago, when the dreaded COVID name started to be being heard quite a bit, we saw an influx of new Tennesseans come here, even in the pandemic, which was great. It caused our budget to really grow well. We also saw the federal dollars come with it because of COVID, which I think was good. And as the Speaker and I would probably agree, some of it bad because it makes us dependent upon federal dollars with one-time money. But what we did was we saw the state budget grow. The last 2 years, however, we actually had to go in and adjust the state's budget downward, our expectations downward, because the budget itself had pretty much plateaued at one point in time, which is, in the time that I've been there, had only happened one other time that we were there. The good news is that our revenues ending last year and this year were a little bit above budget. 2 months into the fiscal year this year, we're a little bit above budget. One of the challenges that we faced was a lawsuit 2 years ago regarding F&E tax. And in the process of having to fix the F&E tax, because of that litigation, you saw the state reduce its overall income by $402 million annually. It also cost us $1.2 billion in one-time money to give credits back to businesses in order to do that. We're still, David Thurman, who is with F&A, super good guy, been in this legislature forever. He would say we're still in an F&E hangover because of the changes that we had to do regarding F&E. But ultimately, the outlook is really good because we're able to provide the services that we've been able to promise to its citizens. A couple of things I think that are also important. In the last 6 years, like in Putnam County alone, but statewide as well, but particularly in Putnam County, we were able to increased the K-12 spending in Putnam County by more than 41% in 5 years. Pretty amazing to see that when you look at the dollars. Yeah. Our educators are doing the difficult work of educating our children and harder. I would argue that partly because of these things right here. I will say that this year, because of the legislature, probably one you might not hear about so much, but I have never heard from so many educators about one particular change in education policy this year than I have the ability for them to eliminate these from their schools. It has been dramatic. I had a librarian here in Putnam County call me and say, Ryan, you won't believe it. I am having difficulty finding things for kids to do in the library because they don't have their phones. They're playing board games, they're communicating with one another, they're looking at each other in the eye, they're actually doing their homework instead of doom scrolling on their phone to see what everyone else is doing. And so that minor change has been dramatic for our schools. And I think we're going to see, as our Putnam County schools lead in this fashion, I think you're going to see a dramatic change in outcomes for students. And more importantly, this restoration of relationships in schools that we have lost over the years, that you and I were so accustomed to when we were in school prior to the cell phone. I will say a couple of things that are really important. How many state employees or employees do I have in the room? None. Few. I will say one of the greatest things that we've been able to do over the last 3 years, we've made a significant investment into our post-employment benefits programs, TCRS. We are the best run retirement system in the United States. It is hard to believe this, but with our post-retirement, our TCRS or our post-employment benefit system, we currently are 103% funded. So if every state employee decided to retire, we had the money in hand to be able to pay for their retirement pension, which is unheard of. I think it's extremely important. It shows the value that we have for our state employees, and particularly in keeping that promise. We couldn't talk about the state of the state without also talking about Tennessee Tech. When I came to Tennessee Tech, it was a completely different looking. I didn't go to Tech, but when I moved to Cookeville and saw Tech, it's a completely different campus today than it was even 10 years ago. We've made over $800 million in investments there. The state has in order to improve the education process there, and those investments are proven out in their attendance or their the daily enrollment of their schools. And so we're really excited about Tech. The future looks bright for Tech. The state's going to continue to support programs there that make this one of our number one economic drivers and employers in the state. It's very important that we're able to do that as well. Senator Bailey talked a little bit about the Rural Health Initiative, about the corporate practice of medicine, which are two very important things, I think, for the Upper Cumberland, particularly the 42nd and the 25th district, as we share Putnam County. But those were really important. But I think one of the things that can have the most impact that we're looking forward towards, under the big beautiful bill at the federal government, they set aside $50 billion for rural transformation of healthcare facilities across the United States. And these monies will be served in rural communities that allows them to change the way or update the way they've been practicing and delivering medicine and healthcare among our communities. This new monies that the Speaker and his leadership with the Governor, Department of Health, the Lieutenant Governor are working diligently over the past several weeks to submit that. I think that was in this week, is it not? I think it is. Yeah, this program to the federal government where we can draw down a minimum of $1 billion if we're able to do that. A lot of those funds can be utilized right here in the Upper Cumberland. So we're really excited about the possibility of partnering with the Department of Health. There's a young lady named Grace Ann Sparks that was born here in Putnam County. She moved to Knoxville during her time as a high school student here. She went to school in Knoxville, Unbeknownst to her mother, she was solicited through digital messaging and Facebook Messenger, FaceTime by a gentleman in Ohio. This gentleman recruited her and exhorted her, coerced her to take her own life. She passed away a year and a half ago. This year, Senator Bailey and I are working on a bill which deals with this kind of coercive suicide. We have currently in statute, we have a statute regarding assisted suicide. But this person who solicited for 5 years to have this young lady take her own life received 2 years prison sentence for doing that to Grace Ann and facilitating her to do that. That is wrong. Senator Bailey and I are working with the Attorney General's office, the Office of Legal Services, Speaker and Lieutenant Governor's office to find a way where we can change the law to make sure that that crime and its penalty is one that makes sense instead of the way that we're currently doing it. I will say a couple other things that we're working on. It's probably every 5th week that City Councilman Chad Gilbert calls me and says, I have this new road project that I'd like for you to fund. And he is like a dog on a bone when it comes to that. And so we are working on with the city and county governments on ways in order to do that. We know that our state funding of individual projects like that, particularly road projects, the speaker may talk about this, but we committed over $400 million, I think it's $438 million to new roads in that serve Putnam County in the next years. So I will say be patient with us. If you see what's going on in Jefferson, you can see that we do not deliver a road fast. But when we do deliver one, you can drive on it. So we're excited about that. But once again, thank you all for the opportunity. I've gone way too long, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here and the opportunity to serve y'all. And thanks.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up because if you all will, December 2nd, hold that on your calendars because that is our state of local government. And so you'll get to hear about many of the road projects that are happening across the county and specifically in Cookeville. So, last but certainly not least, I'd like to invite the Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, up to the podium. Speaker Sexton has held this role of Tennessee House Speaker since 2019 and represents District 25, which includes Cumberland County and portions of Putnam County. Elected to the House in 2011, Speaker Sexton rose quickly through the ranks. His leadership has focused on fiscal responsibility, patient-centered healthcare, student-based education reform, and ensuring safer communities and streets. Speaker Sexton has been a strong advocate for tax cuts, pro-business legislation, and strengthening the state's economy. He's also a vocal supporter of law enforcement, first responders, and victims of crime, emphasizing public safety and tougher sentencing for violent offenders. He lives in Crossville with his wife, Lacey, and has 3 children. He also works for one bank. I think we have like a whole cheering section, maybe, Speaker Sexton. One Bank of Tennessee, and serves on their board of directors. So please join me in welcoming Speaker Cameron Sexton.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you today, and it's great to serve alongside Paul and Ryan in Nashville, and sometimes Ron, if he's still there. No, I'm kidding. It's good to serve along with Ron. He used to be my seatmate on the House floor, and so we had some fun back then. But it's great to work along 2 people who really have the heart for their communities and their state, who are willing to make a difference and willing to take hard votes. Because what you find sometimes is everybody's for something until the time comes and there's people pushing back on you. But we have 2 right here who are willing to stand strong and make sure that they support their communities. And that's what you look for in leaders in our state, leaders also in the General Assembly, and that's what we have here. So I want to thank them for their strong leadership and commitment for us. And the thing with Ryan is, Ryan knows the state budget better than anybody else. So if you have a question, just do what I do. I call Ryan. That's what I do. Hey, Ryan, what's going on with this? And he'll tell me. And so it's great to have him in that role of really pushing our state forward, working with the governor, working with finance and administration and working with the Senate side and Lieutenant Governor and making sure that we are doing what we're supposed to, which is manage your money. It's not our money, your money, like it is household money. And I think that's what we've been doing for the last 15, 16 years. And so I will say, I was trying to decide which way to go here in the speech. And so let me just talk about competing, right? Because we have a lot of businesses here, and you all compete every single day, I would assume. And if you're competing, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you always hopefully learn from that experience. And so some people here know of Greer, who usually hangs out with me. I get that question a lot. And so she started playing basketball. And, as she started playing basketball, she thought she knew how to compete. But she didn't know how to compete because she was 10, 11 years old. And so it had to be learned. And so she played this summer. And she didn't get to play a lot, which is fine, but she had to learn how to practice. She had to learn how to compete. She had to learn what it was like to play people better than her. She had to learn how to throw an elbow in basketball, which was not her strong suit to do. And so she had to learn a lot of things to learn what she needed to do when she stepped on that court, kind of like what you have to do in life every single day. And the reason I bring that up is because our most prized commodity in our state are our children. And I think we all agree with that. They're our future. But we also have to make sure that they're competing in the classroom every single day. They have to learn how to compete, but also to learn how to compete, you also have to know how to overcome failure, right? If you don't know how to overcome failure, it can be depressing, it can be anxiety, it can be paralyzing, it can be a lot of things. And so as you're looking at our greatest commodity and you're looking at education, I think it's important to realize, and sometimes when I say this, people will take it back because they're like, well, you were only a third proficient throughout our state, and reading and math in third grade, eighth grade is even worse, is we need to push our kids to failure. Even the smartest kids need to be pushed to failure. It shouldn't be so easy where they leave high school and say, I never had to crack open a book. That's not right. That's not setting them up for success. And it does happen. And there are really bright kids, but every kid needs to be pushed to failure. They have to know how to compete when they leave school. And that's why it's important in team sports and individual sports and music and other things to really encompass what they need in life. And so as we're looking at K through 12, one of the things we're looking at this year is we had 20,000 school choice scholarships. We had 43,000 odd people who applied for them across our state. 66 in Putnam County received a school scholarship to go to a school of their choice. This year at Crossville, we had 29 that got scholarships. But we need to meet that need, which is to add hopefully 20,000 to 30,000 more school scholarships in this next budget to allow the people the opportunity. And as I talked about, the kids need to learn how to compete. We also need to make sure that our education system's competing. We really do. And sometimes they are competing schools to schools, sometimes district to district. But we also need them competing with other entities, private schools and other things, and making sure that when you're competing for that child, you're going to meet that child's needs. As a business community, you're competing for that customer to walk in your door. You really are. And it could be a bunch of different things you're competing for. It's customer service and banking. It could be rates. It could be relationships. It could be a lot of different things. But you're competing for that individual customer. In education, we need all entities, whether it's charter school, public school, private school, whatever it is competing for that child. I want you at my school. How am I going to get you at my school, or how am I going to make you stay at my school? If we're competing for those kids are going to win, and those parents are going to win. What happens sometimes is you have stagnation, or you have a culture of non-success. You can look at the Memphis City schools. It's easy to talk about here because there's nobody here from Memphis, so you can't get mad at me. But you look at the culture in the Memphis City schools. It is not good. It's not competing. It's not doing anything. And they have schools where they're less than 10% proficient in reading and math. You're like, how's that happening? And they're opposed to any choice coming in. They always deny charter schools. They don't like school choice. But it's a culture problem. And I will tell you, and I think I've said this before, it's not a student rev issue. It's not a student issue. It really isn't. because you take a student out of the school and put them in a different situation and they thrive. It happens in Memphis. They have a school called Pure Academy. They remove them, the worst of the worst kids who come from the worst of the worst families, whose families are running drugs or in prison. They put them in a whole different environment, and now that 100% of them are going to college or going to a TCAT. So it's not a student problem. It's a culture problem. It's a competitive problem in my mind. So opening the door to have more competition, I think, is always a better end to the result. And so looking at to expand school choice is I think, the right way to go. And so the other thing is you also have to think out of the box, right? Businesses, you all think out of the box every day. And you all put something in place, and what happens when it's not working? What do? Change. Yeah, imagine that. Change, right? How often does government change on a bad idea? Not often, right? And so the next thing is, if we're thinking about education, let's think about things that could change. Is, for example, and I mentioned this to the Board of Trustees all across the state of Tennessee in higher education, and you may agree with it, you may not disagree, with it, or you may just want to think about it. So I would just propose you to think about it, because it will be a shock, but over a course of days, it may not be as much of a shock. And so right now, every teacher in our state to teach in the classroom has to have a bachelor's degree. Bachelor's degree. 4-year college degree. Okay. Why? That's the first question. Any business person is always going to say, why is it required to have a bachelor's degree? Why could we not have an associate's degree? Why can we not set up an associate's degree for teachers to come out in grades K through 5, K through 6, or K through 3, or whatever it is that you want to put them in, and say, we are going to teach them how to teach in the classroom to these students reading and math and how to handle this in a 2-year program, so we can churn out teachers faster in rural areas, because where are the community schools? They're in Crossville and Harriman and Jackson and other parts of our state. So why is it just a bachelor's degree? That's the first question you have to ask. The second thing is, can we make it a junior college degree? Knowing that the teachers will all go back and get their bachelor's degree, their master's degree, and everything. And if you want to be in administration, then yes, you have to have your master's degree or whatever it is. If you look at healthcare, that's what we have in healthcare. If you look at nursing, you have LPNs, you have an RN, you have a nurse practitioner. They're all nursing, but they all have different levels of things that they can and cannot do. Could we not set up our teachers in the same way? Could we not set up a junior college 2-year program to get more teachers in those classrooms to really help us in those grades that really matter? Is it doable? Is it not doable? Good, bad, indifferent? Who knows? But it's a conversation we need to have. The second out-of-the-box idea to think about education is in college. Those of you who went to college, were you a junior your 3rd year automatically? No, you were not. I was a senior halfway through my 4th year. I graduated in my 5th year. It was based on the credits that you mastered or you passed. You may have taken classes in different things. You might be good in math, so you might accelerate in math, but some of those classes you might have to hold back in other things. But you did not move technically to the next grade until you had enough credits. It was about passing. It was about credits, about mastery. So my question comes back to you. Other than just wanting to know how many people we have in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, why are we so in tune to just having you in a year because that's your 4th year, that means your 4th grade. 5th year means your 5th grade. 6th year means your 6th grade. If you're not mastering the classes. Because what you hear a lot of times from parents is, on both ends, is my kid's straight A's and they're being held back because they can't take all these classes. They can't go to 7th grade math. They can't go to 8th grade math. They can handle it, but they can't because they're only in 6th grade. So why are we sitting here thinking that we can't move people around in the school systems and go into different grades if they're ready to go in, or hold them back? And they could be in 5th grade, but they might be in 4th grade reading class. Is there something wrong with that? Because they're not going to be successful in 5th grade if they can't pass 4th grade. So should the school system be designed to allow you to be in certain classes but not have a grade in those classes? It's really based on where you are in your academic acumen at that time. You could be a 5th grader taking 7th grade math. You could be a 5th grader taking 4th grade reading. And you know what the parents will do if that happens? There will be more accountability to those parents and to those students because no one wants their kid to be in a lesser class. But we're okay with passing them on and just saying it's okay because now we have a third of the students who are proficient reading and math, and we act like that's great. And the reason I know that that works on the grade thing is because there's a Rust Belt community in Ohio that is much like a not blue city, but very blue collar town. So they have poverty. It's all the same. And what they did is they said reading and math in our schools are no longer based on your grade. They are based on your skill of where you're at. So that whole school at that day, you have reading from 9 to 10. At 9 to 10, you go to the classroom where your skill is. Guess what happens with that teacher? They're teaching to all similar students instead of 8 different varieties of students in there. They do it for math. You know what their proficiency rates are in a blue-collar town in Rust Belt, Ohio? 97%. Right? It's just thinking differently, which is what you all do every single day. So what I will stress to you here today is when you hear ideas thrown out from the General Assembly and people are like, you can't do that, you can't do that, that's government. Would you do that in business? Would you throw out ideas to try to say, we're spending in Memphis $1 billion state dollars and $1 billion local dollars to get the results that we're getting, and we accept that as okay? It's your money, so you should be as mad as we are about it, right? You should be. And as a business, there is no way that you would put that much money in that system if it was working like that. You would figure something else out. And so that's why we're looking at doing a takeover of the Memphis schools. There's some people who are afraid of it, but we hope to get it done, where we put in a new board that's appointed, put in a new director of schools that works with the board. And they did this in Houston. We had Houston come in and talk to us the other day. Houston did the same thing that we're looking at doing in Memphis. In year 0, they took it over. They wanted more money. The people who came in with the new appointed board, they said, we need some additional dollars. State said, you're not getting any money. You got to do it with what you have. Guess what? They started looking at the budget. Guess what they found? 20% to cut. They found $300 to $400 million overnight, basically, of being waste. They used that money to do a lot of different things in there that we should be doing. And all of a sudden, they went from 280 schools failing, 2 years later, less than 100. Right? They changed the culture. They changed the accountability, the transparency. In 2 more years, they hope to have 0 failing schools. Now their issue is, can we really turn this back on? Can we turn it back on? So I will tell you, as we're proposing ideas, think about it from your perspective as a business owner. And if that's your money that you're putting in, would you continue to do the same thing, or would you fight to figure out how to make change? Because that next generation matters. And every student that is not proficient, that doesn't do something else, that doesn't go to a TCAT, I see Cliff here, that doesn't go to a junior college, that doesn't go to college, that doesn't have a job, they're going to end up on social services. They're going to end up in the jail where the sheriff and the DA and the judges are going to see them. They're going to end up somewhere where it's costing you money either way. I would much rather spend the money in education and turn education and create a new culture than I would to spend it on the back end where we're a failure for not doing something different. So thank you all for your time for being here.
Don't fall off the back of the stage. Get your microphone. Test this. Working? Yes. Okay, so you all are going to have to share a microphone. Does that work? You're used to it, right? Yeah. And I will say some of the things that Speaker Sexton was talking about. I just Corby King here with us. I know we have Kurt Drumbarger as well from White County Schools. Having a daughter that's at Prescott Middle, I will say our middle schools do a really good job of doing that and allowing them to move up and take other courses. She's taking high school credit hours right now in 8th grade, and I think they do the same thing for 6th and 7th. So I would love to see that expanded. Kudos though to our school system. here. They're awesome. Okay, so getting into the Q&A portion, as you all know, we always receive many. Does this move just a little bit, Kat? Am I going to disconnect anything? You see cords moving? I gotta face you guys. Is it working? It goes black, let me know. Okay, so we received many great questions, and while we're not able to cover all of them, I would like to go into depth on a few, and then they answered some of those that you had. So if you were one of those that asked a question about the F&E tax and how much that brought back to the state, or some others on transportation, we did answer those, but we'll see if we have time. So with the first one, with the Exit 280 upgrade underway, can we expect, hand it to the Transportation Committee Chair, can we expect additional funding for I-40 and state highway improvements throughout Putnam County, including Jefferson and Willow?
So in speaking to Jefferson and Willow, we have the southern route or state route 134 North Willow widening that will be completed in 2028. That will include South Willow and Interstate Drive with a right turn lane. They're currently in the engineering phase. They're also in the right-of-way phase, and so they're estimating construction to begin in 2028. The I-40 widening of going up Monterey Mountain, they will be doing the engineering phase around 2028 with estimating construction starting in 2031. So now that's going to be a huge project. It's going to be over $200 million just to add the climb lane there on Interstate 40 going up Monterey Mountain. Look, y'all know that I'm in the trucking business, so I hear from people all the time about being behind one of my trucks. It's in the left-hand lane, although the words say trucks in the right lane. So I get it, and those of us that do travel up and down Monterey Mountain certainly are looking forward. You know, when I think about 2031, I continue to think about how old I'll be in 2031. So, yeah, I know, it's wild. So we, I'm going to be, you guys aren't far behind me. So there's, but here's one thing that I want you to, on the North Willow widening and also the right turn lane on Willow Avenue, those are, that's about a $75 million project there that's going to be taking place over the next couple of years.
And I will say too, there was, I think that was pushed back on the timeline because of some of the things that happened with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene as well. So I can't imagine the work that the committee did to restructure some of those funds. Driving through there during fall break, it is amazing just in a year what they've done, but there's still a lot of work to do through Irwin, Cott County, all of that area. So kudos to Transportation Committee for helping get that back open quickly. Okay, so next one. Since 2002, cities have received a smaller share of the state. So I think you guys might get this every year, but hopefully there's an update. Cities have received a smaller share of state sales tax revenue due to the 1% increase the state retained. Given Tennessee's strong fiscal position, is there any discussion about restoring the original 4.6% revenue sharing model to better support local services like public safety and infrastructure?
I'll take that. But there has been, I guess, 3 years, this has kind of been a huge topic of discussion among us. I think, as I said earlier, though, I looked at the numbers, Putnam County, City of Cookeville, their percentage rate of growth on average 6 or 8%. States has been pretty flat the last 3 years at 1%. But because of this number, and I think to the speaker's credit, we're changing it maybe for the first time this year, how we do the budget stuff. Prior to this year, or this anomaly that is the final year of the Lee administration, we are given what would be equivalent to an allowance to spend. And so that allowance usually is $10 to $15 million total. And so in order for the legislature who approves the budget and stipulates the revenues going forward, we literally had to take from the governor's priorities to be able to do things for our districts, like widening roads or doing something in tech or providing monies for improvements. But The big challenge is that this number statewide, I think it's like 200,000 to the city of Cookeville annually, but statewide it's like 86 million and 112 million for the different sales tax versions of it. So there needs to be a partnership with the governor to be able to impact that long-term revenue shift from state dollars back to the local dollars. Give you an idea, it makes it very difficult because I just stated a few minutes ago, with the F&E tax revision, we reduced the F&E tax on a recurring basis 4 times what the local option sales tax restoration would be. So it's very difficult to find the money. But we're all hopeful. I mean, we kind of joke about it. We've been kicking shins about this for so long. We would love to vote for it. We'd love to do it. There's 2 different solutions right now in front of the state. One is an outright repeal to go back to where it was. And then there's also a phased-in approach, kind of like the Hall income tax. And I think of the 2, the phased-out approach would probably be the one that's more amenable, mainly because we don't have to come up with that number of.
Well, in this year's General Assembly, we lowered the administrative fee, so that's basically $19 million that's going back to the local governments. I know when you're looking at 95 counties, that's not a huge number, but at the same time, we are recognizing that that's something that needs to be returned back to the locals for them to be able to use.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this next one, Sheriff Eddie Ferris has asked, and I want to thank Sheriff Ferris for providing security for us today. Honestly, in a time like what we have going on right now, it is never more important for us to provide that and have that. And unfortunately, I hate to even be saying that, but we do appreciate the way that you all protect us in these events. So Sheriff Eddie Ferris has asked for an update on the National Guard's presence in Memphis and the state's continued role there in Shelby County.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Sheriff. Let me just say, first of all, the Shelby County issue, there's multiple. One is they do have a good sheriff who does do the job, and a good city police chief who does do the job. They have a terrible prosecutor who the Journal knows because we complain to him all the time about him, and they have a terrible prosecutor, and they have terrible judges. And so if you don't have all 3 that are quality, the judicial system is not going to work. And so that's part of their problem. Those all elected officials, but we also have a duty, even when there's bad decisions, we have to try to keep the community safe. And I think that's one of the reasons we did what we tried to do. The second thing is how did Shelby County get there? Because a lot of people here would say, well, Memphis crime's always been bad. How bad is it? Well, it's basically in 4 years under a new DA with new judges, it almost tripled of what it used to be. And then the other aspect of is what you saw during COVID is Shelby County schools shut down for an extended period of time. And guess where all those kids in high school and middle school decided to go? Run around on the streets, join gangs, get in, and now they have over 100 gangs in Memphis, 100. You know, usually we think of the Vice Lords and the Crips and the Bloods and so forth, but they have over 100 gangs in Memphis. And so you have all these kids, all this stuff. Their truancy rate is higher than the graduation rate, basically, which is a whole other problem if you want to look at education. That's why the whole thing needs to be taken over, just like we're kind of sending the National Guard. So the governor worked with the president, as well as Secretary Hegseth and General Bondi and Stephen Miller, the policy person, come up with a solution. One, the solution is could the state have sent in the National Guard? Yes, the governor could have sent it in earlier, but the National Guard has no authority to arrest individuals. So it would have just been mere oversight. So what you did need was additional resources. And so over the last few years, we've put in a lot of highway patrol because the law enforcement is down 800 officers in Shelby County because they don't value law enforcement there. And so why would you go work there? So they're down 800. And so we put in more highway patrol to help with the state routes to try to control the drag racing and other things so they could pull back and actually send those officers into communities where they're needed the best that they could. And so we have been doing things, but we needed more resources. And so there's a whole host of resources down there right now making a difference every single day. National Guard just arrived less than a week ago down there, and you're seeing pictures. I'll give you the stats. So in 3 weeks, it's basically been 3 weeks from the day they arrived, which would be a throwaway day, but we'll give it to them if the left wants to go 3 weeks, there's been over 1,400 arrests of violent criminals and gang members, 1,400 in 3 weeks. The most amazing fact is 67 missing kids who are in human trafficking have been located. 67 in 3 weeks. Imagine that, right? And the crime is now down, I think it's from September, the same week of data they had, whatever week it was in September, it's down 40% from the same week a year ago. And now what you have is videos of kids who say, I can go outside and play. I feel safe. Because they were not before, which we take for granted here, right? We take that for granted, but that doesn't happen in Memphis. And so what is happening is those criminals are getting locked up. They're getting thrown away, and hopefully they're going to run out of the state of Tennessee. But it was much needed. The resources are much needed. The questions we're asking now is, once the federal resources leave, what do we do to continue making sure we crack down? One thing is working with the TBI to develop a huge strike force in our state to go after gangs and violent criminals anywhere in the state. We don't have that capacity to do that. We do have strike forces, but not to the degree that we have. And so that would help us as well. No offense to General Dunaway and the DA's conference, but we also have to figure out how to get them out of the Shelby County jurisdiction and the courts. How do we handle that? Because you go arrest a violent criminal, the judge will give them no bail, which we hope changes on the next ballot if y'all vote for the constitutional amendment, that they give them no bail, and the prosecutor slow walks it. And next thing you know, they committed 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 crimes. And so we have to figure out the jurisdictional role in certain circumstances that makes everybody feel comfortable, where the state can make sure that if they're not doing their job, that someone can come in and do it for them, because the safety of the communities are very important. So we're hopeful. We're looking that they're going to be there at least through the end of the year, we know of. And you know, I would tell other blue cities, if you're not protecting your community, the same thing will happen to you, because we cannot allow that to happen in any of our communities.
So those of you that are in manufacturing, you know that anything going to the West Coast or coming in from the West Coast by rail, Memphis is the hub. And so one thing that I have found over the past several months in visiting Memphis, especially with my good friend Senator Brent Taylor, who's been on the front lines, especially trying to bring accountability to those, to the district attorney and those judges there in Memphis, is that the rail cars coming in, the trains that are coming into Memphis and leaving Memphis, they're having to do a continuous roll. In other words, a lot of times the trains coming in from the West Coast could stop outside on the tracks. Well, these organized gangs were going in and basically looting and stealing rail cars loaded with Nike shoes and electronics. And so the manufacturers and the railroad was losing millions of dollars, and so they were having to develop a rolling system to where those trains never stopped coming in and going out of the rail yard in Memphis. And so it's about personal public safety, but manufacturers and the railroad was paying a heavy price for those organized gangs going in there and basically robbing those trains coming in and out of Memphis.
Yeah, just NPR has a special story on all the Nike shoes. We all know Nike has a manufacturing and corporate office in Memphis, and like hundreds of thousands of shoes, like basically going on a black market, which is interesting, from Memphis. And speaking of the kids that you talked about, Speaker Sexton, one of the questions, families rely on programs like after-school care, swim safety, and youth sports. What are the state's priorities for supporting out-of-school programs that help children thrive beyond the classroom? And some of this might be for after-school care.
Well, the speaker and I had an opportunity to, prior to this event, to go over and visit the YMCA and see the good work that they're doing there with their after-school program. I know that my family utilize those services. Abby and I did for our kids when they were little, and the speaker and I had an opportunity to go over and visit to see the good work that they're doing there in the after-school programs. Of course, in the communication that we had with them about expanding those programs in the state. I know in the speaker's district, the Y is doing a partnership with the city to build a new YMCA there. Because quite frankly, there's just no resources for kids, particularly in his district in Upper Cumberland. We do have a challenge. The Y is doing with private dollars, trying to double their size here in the next coming years. So if you want to be a corporate sponsor, I know Mandy Perhay would be happy to take your check wherever she is. And it's really important, really, the after-school programs. The Y has really stepped in. They have 50 facilities across the state. They're doing a really good job of meeting those needs, particularly in an affordable way. We did a study this year, came out last year. We changed the law as it relates to smaller daycare facilities. And one of the biggest questions that people ask, as you know, when someone is interested in coming to Cookeville is education and childcare. Those are the two most important things, because the workforce is obviously a really good one, or we wouldn't have all these businesses. But we do have to provide other means by which people find a place for their kids affordably. And I think you're going to see us continue to make investments in that area going forward and make it easier on folks to find different options as well.
Has there been a discussion for continued or enhanced funding for after-school programs in the public school system? Or
There could be, if the school system is willing to do it. I know up in Crossville, Homestead used to do that. They don't do it much anymore. So if there's an appetite for that, yes. There's been a lot of money for YMCA's and Boys and Girls Clubs all across the state of Tennessee that provide after-school care, after-school tutoring and mentoring, and they're really making a difference all across the state. And so the partnership is where you want to go. You don't think you want the government owning it and doing it. I think you want private businesses doing it, but you want the seed money from the state to come in to help. I think also, look, you also need to talk about quality pre-K programs in our state. We used to have a lot of pre-K programs, daycares that have pre-K. You don't see those much anymore. I think that really sets us ahead. And one of the bills we had this year too was about setting an age when you can start kindergarten. Sometimes people start their kids way too early, and they start their kids way too early because there is no childcare.
yeah, they
And
don't
then
want
yes,
to pay for the childcare.
And
So
then
get them in
yes,
school.
yeah, I mean, they do, but they're not ready for kindergarten. It puts the teacher in a bad spot. It puts the school in a bad spot. And the kid's not ready for kindergarten, but it's all because we don't have a child care or it costs too much. And so we need to look at it as a whole. It needs to be, you need to have quality pre-K programs, daycare programs, after-school areas as well. And also make it affordable with regulations for businesses who want to provide it on site for their employees, to where it's easier to do. Because right now it is so hard that the businesses want to do it, but the liability is too much. And so we have to be able to get that better to where it becomes easier to do it. When you go from, say, I don't know the numbers, so forgive me if somebody's here for Upper Cumberland Development District, but let's say that you have 20 kids in your daycare and you want to go to 21. The rules and regulations for you to get to 21 is so hard, so much money, you don't want to do it. The question is, once again, why 20? Maybe in 1950 when they put that in, maybe 20 made sense, but today, why does 20 make sense? And so you have to constantly have this review of policy and put it in today's world with better technology, with better systems in place. And should we raise that up to allow those numbers to be higher, or is it really 20 should be the number? But it has to be more affordable for those who want to get into the business first. Because if it's not, then it's just going to be a bear for those who want to have it to actually send their child somewhere.
And Representative Williams, you were recognized this year by all of, I guess, the funding agents for some of the expansion on daycares. Can you speak to any of the corporate incentives that businesses can get for daycare or childcare?
Well, there's not, so before any of you think, oh, I'm going to get a check, you're not going to get a check. But what happens is before, large corporations have been able to, and particularly like higher education, would also create daycare at their campuses because they had so many employees and so many opportunities to do that. The bill that the speaker was talking about, we changed some of the guidelines as it relates to smaller ones, but we also allowed corporations to partner together. Particularly, why this is beneficial to places like Putnam County, our large employers are large to us, but they're not large as it relates to being able to afford to be able to provide this as an employee benefit. So what this would do would allow different businesses to get together and create a co-op themselves, much like my kids went to down the street at the church. And so the co-op where the businesses can combine their resources in order to have a specific daycare. So if Cameron's business and Paul's business and my business got together and created a cooperative daycare, we could do that. Whereas you couldn't do that before. It all had to be housed, and it was just cost prohibitive. And so that was one of the changes we made this year that I think long term, but a lot of people don't know they can't do it. So as a business, if you find like-minded business culturally very similar to yours, you might, your chief financial officer, your CEO, your president, or somebody might get together and say, hey, does this make sense? Because I think it's that benefit to employees is really what's going to differentiate employers from others as it relates to daycare going forward, and really create a culture, not just in the business, but in the community, if they're able to do that.
Okay, thank you. So if anyone is interested in learning more about that, feel free to reach out to us and we can connect you with the information. So that last question was not from the Y, just so you know, but we did get some questions from the Y. The YMCA and other nonprofits are working with hospitals to address chronic disease recovery and mental health. How does the state plan to invest in community-based wellness and prevention efforts, not just the treatment? Don't fight over.
Yeah, I don't. Well, the biggest challenge is like I was talking to somebody the other day in my office. In our healthcare program, you have what's called a wellness visit. I don't know what the female population is, but in the construction business, the male population, they never go to the doctor. So it doesn't matter if your wellness visit is for free. And I think one of the challenges that we have as it relates to those kind of wellness services, a lot of it has to do with the relationship that you have with your medical provider, or in this case, the Y. And so them being able to provide means by which they're able to do that. When the speaker and I were at the YMCA today, we saw just volunteerism for seniors teaching second graders how to swim. It's great for the second grader, but I think it's probably from a wellness perspective, it's probably better for the senior, to be honest, because the senior is able to sit there and have a sense of purpose, and they're actually working on their own health while they're helping someone else learn how to swim. I think anytime that we can find ways for people to partner to do that, but that's not really, as the speaker would say, I don't really think that's the government's role in order to do that. I think we need to create pathways to allow people to do that. But I think as it relates to funding of those things, it makes it very difficult for us to do it. It's kind of esoteric. But obviously wellness is a personal responsibility. It's my personal responsibility. It's each one of your individual responsibilities, how we eat and whether we exercise and take care of ourselves. It has to start with us, really. And then it's not the government's role to tell you you can do that. We used to have a deal where you could get on your monthly membership in my office, you could get a credit towards your membership fee to do it. And the first 6 months it was great. Everyone's going. And then when personal responsibility checked in, you're like, no one's asking for this reimbursement anymore because no one's going. It's just like the whole first of the year thing. So I think it makes it really hard to do wellness when there's no real responsibility for anything.
Look, I think insurance is a problem. That's just my take, and I see a few heads. Insurance problem. They try to limit you from figuring out what your long-term health care looks like. They want to focus on today if you have an issue. They don't want to know what you may have in the future. And meaning that is, right now we can send you to a CT scan, MRI. They can do it on you, and they can tell you the likelihood that you're going to have dementia. Think about it. You don't have it today, but they can tell by what's flowing through your blood up to your brain, where it's being deposited, how much deposits are, your likelihood of having dementia, when it may or may not start. Kind of scary, right? But would you not rather know that it's coming and figuring out how to slow it down, what you need to do to not have those costs long-term, right? And in insurance, it is okay for those costs long-term because we're trying to save today, right? And so now, next week, I'm paying for my own. I'm going to do a biomarker test, 65 different things they're testing me for to see what markers I have in my system to see what may or may not be a problem for me. Kind of scary, but I like to know what's coming and how we can handle it if we need to. I don't want to have a heart attack to understand that I've got problems, right? I think I want to know before that. I think Dr. Buchanan would like to know that beforehand too. And so there's only so much that can happen in a wellness checkup. There's only so much that can determine. And if you go get a calcium score for your heart, you're probably going to pay that out of your own pocket, right? So I think we need a healthcare system that is more based on preventative and is saying, let's identify what your history is, what that looks like, how do we prevent you and prolong it from happening. I was at Vanderbilt Hospital yesterday on ALS, looking at their research, which is amazing on what they're doing. The good news is we stole 8 people from Mayo, so that's a wonderful thing. And so there's 12 people at Vanderbilt right now looking at ALS to determine what is the cause, what's happening, can we identify it, do we know earlier? They tracked it down to a protein. They can determine what protein you have if you have it in there. They don't know exactly how it's activated, but it's activated by toxins or trauma that activates it sometimes. They have now determined a saliva test to determine if someone is actively having ALS in their body. Think about that. So drop foot's usually the first sign. And so the research is getting there. The research is getting there. So my whole thing in healthcare is we should be focusing on tomorrow and having it pushed off in the future about understanding our history and where we're at today and doing everything that we can to make you as healthy today. And not waiting for the crash course of something that may happen that sends you into a trauma that affects your family, that affects the hospital, that affects everything that we could have prevented only if we had done it 3 years earlier. That's the constant battle we have. As well as the last thing is, did y'all know that when the health insurance gives you a prior authorization, it doesn't mean that they're paying for it? Have y'all figured that one out yet? So there's a great article out there that the insurance companies are now, they're in a lawsuit where they prior authorization someone to get a surgery. They got the surgery and then the insurance company's like, no, it's not covered. Well, you gave me a prior authorization. Well, it doesn't mean that we're paying it. It just means that we're okay if you get it. Whatever that means, right? So the whole system needs to be fixed, meaning at the end, you and your physician should be in control. Point simple. Insurance is secondary. You and your doctor should be in control of how you view your healthcare, what services you need, what labs. We either trust the doctors or we do not. I'm not sure I really trust the insurance person who's flipping open their book and saying, what's your age? And you're 62. Yeah, that's not covered, right? I want my doctor to tell me that. And I think that's what we need to push for.
Okay, well, thank you. And we are unfortunately out of time for any others, unless you guys just want to keep going. I think they have.
Whatever they want.
Really though, thank you all. Thank you for being here, Representative Williams, Senator Bailey, Speaker Sexton. Thank you for taking time to be with us here in Putnam County. As you can see too, this seems to be one of our most popular because they love to hear from you all. So thank you for taking time. Thank you too to Enbridge and Art and his team for sponsoring so that we could have this. And I really want to ask each of you, I know we're already into October, which blows my mind, coming up on November, but we still have a full calendar of events for the remainder of the year. One in particular that will be huge is next week we are hosting our women's conference. And I hope that all the women in the room will come, and for all of our fellas, I hope you'll share it and send all the women in your life to attend it. We have such a great agenda, and we're not sold out yet, but close, so please do go look at that. And then also I brought up the December 2nd, right, Carlin, state of local government update. So please do get on and register for that. And with that, I appreciate your time, your leadership, the partnership that you all bring in this community, and I hope you all have a wonderful